Have you ever noticed your brain replaying the same conversation hours after it already happened? You think about what you said, then what you should have said, then what they might have meant, and then what they might think about you now. Before you realize it, you've been running the same thoughts for hours. You're physically exhausted, but your mind is buzzing as if you've just had 3 cups of coffee. It feels like your brain is trying to solve something important, but nothing actually gets resolved because it's just running on repeat. It's like a high-speed chase on a treadmill, maximum effort, 0 distance. And the strange part is, while it is happening, it feels like you are doing something useful. That is not a personality flaw, and your brain is not broken. Your attention has simply been trained to think this way. And in this video, I want to show you why that happens and how the same brain that learned to overthink can learn to focus again. You and I have both believed that the ultimate goal is a quiet mind. We imagine that if we just do enough work, our brains will eventually stop producing thoughts. So when our mind keeps talking, replaying moments, analyzing choices, and predicting future problems, we feel like something is fundamentally wrong with us. We feel heavy, as if the weight of all of those what-ifs is physically pressing down on our head. We assume we are doing life incorrectly, but our brains were never designed to just stop. Thinking is simply what the brain is trained to do. Our brain constantly predicts outcomes, evaluates risks, simulates possibilities, and replays past events to help us survive. Over time, the brain develops a powerful system for simulation. It constantly asks questions like, what might happen next? What went wrong before? How can I avoid that again? This system is incredibly useful when it is intentionally directed, but it becomes exhausting when it runs without direction. There is an important difference between thinking and overthinking. Thinking moves towards a conclusion. It eventually reaches a point where the mind says, okay, I have enough information. You feel a sense of release in your body, almost like a literal sigh of relief. Overthinking says, I need to solve this problem. What if this happens? What if that happens? What if I miss something? Overthinking never finds the exit. So it keeps replaying and analyzing because the brain believes it is working on something urgent. It feels productive, but nothing actually moves forward. I remember, not that long ago, when I was trying to figure out a fix for the front fence on my property. I was laying in bed trying to sleep for 2 hours, mentally working out, do I use timber, do I use mesh? Should it be 1.8 meters or 2.2 meters high? I was worrying about whether the parallel fence paling should face outside or inside and where I was actually going to put the fence. My body was racing as if I was actually outside doing the heavy lifting, but I was inside staring at the ceiling. My brain was convinced that thinking about the fence was the same as building the fence. I was exhausted before the sun even came up, and the fence was still not actually built. That is the cost of a simulation running without direction. Our attention has been shaped by the environment around us. Short clips, constant notifications, rapid simulation, endless novelty. Our brain has become used to the moving quickly from one piece of information to the next. Scroll, pause, swipe, new input, repeat. When the tool of distraction is not there, such as a phone, TV, or work, attention does not suddenly stop moving, it simply turns inward. Instead of scrolling through content, we begin scrolling through thoughts. Think about how social media works. You see one post, then another, then another. Now imagine the same mechanism happening inside your own mind. One thought appears, then another, then another. You remember something awkward you said 3 years ago. Then your mind jumps to something you forgot yesterday, and then you worry about tomorrow. It's a frantic, shallow feeling, like you're trying to catch your breath while running a race that has no finish line. Your attention keeps moving, but there's no real destination. It is the mental version of infinite scrolling. And this is where we get stuck. We notice the noise in our mind, and then we decide the goal is to eliminate it. So we try every spiritual mind hack we can find. We try to force the thoughts to stop. We imagine them floating down a river on a leaf. or we try to control every mental movement we have. But that approach usually backfires, because the moment you start fighting your thoughts or controlling them, your brain interprets those thoughts as even more important. If something feels dangerous or urgent, the brain pays more attention to it. It's like trying to hold a beach ball underwater. The harder you push, the more tension you create, and eventually it snaps back to the surface with even more force. So the harder you try to suppress your thoughts, the more attention you accidentally give them, and the stronger the rumination becomes. Instead of trying to stop thinking, the real shift is much simpler. Give your attention direction. Attention without direction becomes rumination. Attention with direction becomes focus. The same brain that loops on problems can also learn to focus deeply, create meaningful work, build projects, and solve real challenges. The difference is not intelligence, it is direction. When attention has somewhere to go, it becomes productive. When it has nowhere to go, it circles itself. This pattern affects more than just thinking. It shapes how you experience your entire day. If your attention is constantly jumping between thoughts and worries and what-ifs, life starts to feel fragmented. You could be sitting in the sun, but instead of feeling the warmth on your skin, your mind is miles and miles away thinking about a crisis. That is why so many of us feel mentally and physically exhausted, but have not accomplished anything. Our brains have been running all day, but in circles. Here is the best part. Attention is trainable. Just as distraction was learned through repeated practice, focus can also be learned through repeated practice. It feels like building a muscle. It might feel shaky at first, but with every repetition, it gets steadier and easier. It begins with small, conscious changes. Finishing one task before starting another. Reading a few pages of a book without checking your phone. Letting silence exist without immediately feeling it. Spending time creating something rather than consuming something. These small shifts begin teaching the brain a new neural pathway, literally carving a new pathway in your brain. Instead of constant switching, our attention begins to learn depth again. When you see overthinking as a pattern of behavior rather than a flaw, you stop treating your mind like an enemy and you stop punishing yourself. Instead, you begin recognizing that the mind is simply following the neural pathways it learned from your environment, your habits, and your attention. And anything that was trained can also be retrained. But there is another layer to this, because there is a reason your brain keeps generating these loops in the first place. It is not random, and it certainly is not a weakness. Your mind is actually trying to protect you. It's one thing to know how to redirect your attention, but it's another to understand why it feels like a high-speed chase on a treadmill every time you close your eyes. If you want to know how our brain simulation system tricks us into thinking we're being productive when we're actually just getting exhausted, check out this video popping up right now. And if you want help applying this in your own life, you can work directly with me. The link is in the description below. Remember to subscribe to the channel. Thanks for watching. Bye for now.